Before explorers traced its waters or maps drew its course, the Nile was already ancient, a living spirit, whispered about in tales of gods, love, and blood. Some said it flowed from the tears of a goddess. Others swore it was born from the veins of the earth itself. But all agreed, whoever controlled the Nile, controlled life. The Nile, lifeblood of Africa, stretching over 6,600 kilometers from the heart of Central Africa to the Mediterranean Sea, it has been called the Eternal River. But long before the world knew it as geography, Africans knew it as myth, as spirit, across the continent. From Egypt to Ethiopia, Sudan to Uganda, people told stories of its birth. Each story revealed more than just a river. It revealed how ancient Africans understood creation, divinity, and the fragile balance between chaos and life. To ancient Egyptians, the Nile was a sacred artery of the gods. They called it Itru, the river, as though no other needed a name. Each year, when it flooded, they believed the god Hapi, a plump, blue-skinned deity, was bringing renewal, fertility, and prosperity to the land. Hapi's blessings turned desert into paradise, death into rebirth. But farther south, in Nubia and Ethiopia, other myths told of the Nile's secret source, a place guarded by spirits and mountains where heaven touched earth. In these tales, the river wasn't just water. It was divine will flowing from the heart of creation itself. And while Greek explorers and British colonials would one day chase the physical origins of the Nile, the ancient Africans had already answered a greater question, not where the Nile began, but why. In Egypt's earliest myth, the Nile's source was the tears of Isis, goddess of love and magic. When her husband Osiris was murdered by his jealous brother Set, Isis wept for days. Her tears flowed endlessly across the desert, and from her grief, the Nile was born. Each annual flood, they said, was a mourning renewed, the goddess remembering love lost. But the Nubians told a different story, one older than pyramids. They spoke of Awi, the great serpent that lived beneath the mountains. When the world was new, Awi's rage split the earth, and his blood gushed out, becoming the Nile. The people prayed to keep him calm, for if Awi ever stirred again, the river would dry up and the land would die. In Ethiopia, another myth said that the Nile was born from Tizabe, the smoke of the Nile, where the goddess Gishabai struck the earth and opened a spring that flowed forever. Even today, locals say the spring at Gishabai, the true blue Nile source, is sacred and only the pure may drink from it. And in Central Africa, deep among the lakes that feed the Nile, legends tell of Kalunga, the spirit of life and death, who shaped the rivers as bridges between the world of the living and the ancestors. For millennia, kings rose and fell by the Nile's rhythm. The pharaohs called themselves lords of the flood, claiming divine right over its waters. In temples from Luxor to Karnak, priests performed rituals to ensure Hapi's gift would return each year. When it failed, when drought struck, the people feared it was a sign that the gods had turned away. In Nubia, the river became a weapon and a blessing. Its cataracts served as both defense and lifeline, shaping the rise of the kingdom of Kush, Meroe, and Napata. Every victory and every drought was tied to the river's heart. Later, in Ethiopia, the Nile was believed to be one of the four rivers of Eden, proof that God's paradise was not somewhere else, but here in Africa. Even the 15th century Emperor Zara Yacob declared that Ethiopia was a land where the Nile was born, and therefore the land chosen by God. The Nile is more than a river. It is Africa's living memory, a flowing archive of myths, kingdoms, and civilizations. Its waters carry papyrus scrolls, gold, and stories, from the temples of Egypt to the monasteries of Ethiopia. And in every age, the Nile reminded those who lived along its banks that power is borrowed from nature, never owned. Even today, the Nile still defines politics, identity, and survival. Nations argue over dams and flow rights, echoing the same ancient fear. Who controls the Nile controls the future. But perhaps the ancients had it right. No one truly controls it. The Nile belongs to the gods and to the earth. From the tears of Isis to the blood of Awi, the myths of the Nile reveal something eternal, that life itself springs from struggle, loss, and rebirth. The river flows not because it must, but because it remembers. And maybe that's what the ancients were trying to tell us, that to understand the Nile is to understand ourselves, forever moving, forever searching for home.